Okay. Now I feel welcome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Yesterday was such a good day, such a great day, and many of the same faces are here, but many new faces. So first of all, welcome to all the new faces that joined here today. There's two things I want to say about yesterday because I cannot let it go. So I want to properly say goodbye to yesterday because I enjoyed so much. One is, and I mentioned this when I stood on the stage here yesterday, I was just watching yesterday between 9 to 10, which was the breakfast time. You know, we gave our customers a later start in appreciation of working with us. But I was just watching how the Replicant team and our customers met, and there were hugs all around. And I said, if we ended the conference now, I'll be satisfied. Just seeing the hugs, seeing the warmth, seeing the connection we're able to build, speaks to the true partnerships we build with our customers. You can talk about it, you can say we're true partners and we really believe in it, but the hugs actually spoke louder than words. So that was something that I was super excited about. And I had another thing to say about yesterday, but I forgot. The other thing is, and this was actually this morning, I was just walking by and overhearing customers talking among themselves about new ideas of how to use automation. And that was great because we're able to inspire people just by talking about other use cases and other ways automation is used and about conversation design. We're able to inspire people to think of what else automation can do for them. So that was another one of the moments where if we end the conference now will be also pretty great, but we're not ending it now. We're just starting it now. And we have a really packed day and hopefully you're gonna enjoy it. We build enough differences between the sessions so it doesn't look like a slog, and hopefully you're going to end this day energized, a little tired. So really excited to be here today. Instead of talking about my background in boring way, I just want to make one comment. 6 years ago, almost about the same time, I was standing on a stage like this with about the same number of people, kicking off the first customer conference of a company called Talkdesk. It was about our size when it comes to employees, revenue scale, etc. And it was, I remember the thrill of starting a tradition. And we're here in the same thrill of starting a tradition. If you don't know Talkdesk, it's now a company with hundreds of millions in revenue. It's one of the Gartner Magic Quadrant leaders in contact center as a service. And I had a chance to kind of go through the first 3 or 4 customer conferences that see the company grows. And we decided to start our first customer conference now, and surely it's the beginning of a tradition, and I'm hoping to see many of you maybe here next time around. But we're starting a new tradition here. Hopefully by the time we get to our 6th or 7th conference, we're gonna be as large as Talkdesk is. But again, feel a little bit of being part of a history because this is how I feel. Shout out to Veronica. She was helping putting together Open Talk 6 years ago. She's here helping out putting Resolve, and I'm sure half of you thought was her in the process. She was a great help creating this event. So that's a quick note. Let's jump in. First, welcome everybody. Peter mentioned that people travel far. Some people just traveled 5 minutes from Nashville, but the majority of people went on the airplane to come here. So I want to welcome everyone that made the effort and decided to commit to be here. Again, thankful to everybody that was not only here in body, but was here in mind and focus. And hopefully everybody will stay here, be focused, connect to other people. There's a lot we can learn from one another, and there's just great brand here that build fantastic customer service, so we can all learn from one another. So I want to start with this, and you may have heard it before, but let's have a little time travel exercise. I just read 11/22/63, fantastic book by Stephen King. So I have time travel in my head. And I imagine a time traveler, 2 time travelers, maybe it's a couple, and they both went through this portal in maybe 1992. So 30 years ago, they went through this time portal. One landed in, I don't know, downtown Nashville, and went into a hip coffee shop. And they're pretty certainly be shocked. People working with this weird machine, laptops, it looks, everything is connected. People are playing videos on their phones. They will see somebody like flipping through the entire catalog of a company and one click ordering something on e-commerce. They will see someone else just take the phone, 2 clicks, and there's a car coming to pick them up. So, wow, the world is pretty awesome right now. A lot of new things happen. E-commerce happened. There's everybody has smartphones. You can navigate everywhere. Remember in 1992, we'll print. No, I think it was before we could even print instructions. We'll actually have maps we buy from AAA, and we use them to navigate. So much have changed. You don't even think about, I need to get from A to B, and you don't plan for it anymore. You just key it in Google. So much have changed. So that will be one person for time travel couple. The second person will actually go to a call center. Maybe they jump into the AT&T call center somehow, and they will feel very at home. Like 992 call center, 2022 call center. There's some changes. The internet has changed so much in our life in the last 30 years, which will be the first time traveler, did not change as much in the contact center space. There is something that happened. Outsourcing made easy. It used to be super hard to set up a call center in, say, Manila. Now, with internet, you just need to have a physical space and you can connect whatever software you use. So this become easier, and this helped drive costs down, not necessarily quality down, but it helped drive costs down. We don't have media servers anymore we have to install, that's great. So there's no physical servers that you have to connect and wires. And also integrations made easier. So now the separate systems you have can be connected, but at the same time, a typical agent work now with 8 tabs open at the same time. So it's not that we create this magical Salesforce vision of this one UI that ruled them all. So while we made some progress in the contact center space, by and large, the business process is the same. If you go back to the other side, navigation is different, buying is different. Almost everything we do today is different than it was 30 years ago. In the contact center, yes, we may use newer tools, but the process is exactly the same. A customer calls, get into a queue, wait on hold, or wait until there's an agent available, being routed somewhere, talk with a tier 1, transfer to tier 2, maybe there's whisper transfer, hot transfer, cold transfer. None of these terms are going to be new to anyone or strange to anyone that, again, came back from 92. So when you think about it, of course, that a lot of the challenges in the contact centers have not changed. This is a survey we've done with 300 contact center leaders, was an outside research firm, and some of the data, you're going to see some of the data during my presentation. 54% of contact center leaders are struggling with higher or increased costs. And of course we do, because as inflation, wages increase, people don't want to work anymore for the $10, $11, $12, $13 an hour. And 49% of you cannot hire enough agents. And this is something we heard, by the way, almost in every call was a prospect or a customer in the last year, just unable to hire enough agents. Many of you had to let go some agents, and then it was just very hard to hire people back because of combination of things. People are looking for higher wages, and not necessarily, or CFO may not be happy with that because it's a big change across many people. People are looking for a work that may not be in office. People may be looking for more flexibility, and for a while there was a lot of government money that was poured into the economy that helped people be more picky. But about half of contact center leaders struggling with hiring enough people. I actually find it strange that the number is so low because I can't remember a single phone call we had with a prospect or a customer that this was not mentioned as a pain. 40%, 39% finding it challenging to handle call spikes. Of course you do. There's actually no solution in the current paradigm of contact centers. There's no solution for call spikes. What would you do? And one of our customers, Spirit Airline, mentioned that when you have 20 flights that get canceled because of a weather event, how do you solve it? There's just no real solution. You cannot, from thin air, bring in 300 agents, which is a capacity you need to deal with this call spike. And 34% dealing with long wait time for customers, which begs to the thought of what's the 66 other percentages don't care, because I don't know any contact center now or that doesn't deal with long wait time for customers, which of course is the one thing customers hate the most. So we have roughly the same contact center architecture today as we had in the past, and we had the same type of issues we had in the past. So how do we solve it? I want to talk about automation a little bit, and it sounds like this new cool thing, and everybody think about automation as autonomous vehicles, actually going to sit with our back to traffic, as this picture shows. And autonomous vehicles are actually a really interesting automation concept. Driving is a mundane task. We don't use a lot of our brain for driving, as you may know. You can actually have a phone conversation, listen to the radio, and drive at the same time, and do it on autopilot. So it's a really mundane, brainless type of task. And if we get to a point where every car is driving autonomously, we're going to have fewer accidents, fewer traffic jam, less pollution. It's actually a great thing for society, and maybe driving a car will be like riding a horse. You can do it as a hobby, but it's not necessarily going to be your everyday task. And we're getting there. It's probably going to be in 10, 15 years until we see autonomous cars everywhere. But it's a great example of automation. But it's not very new. We've actually been automating things forever, but ever since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, that's why I picked the 170 years, we've been automating things in a faster and faster clip. So if you think of trains, like the Victoria Line in London has been automated and driving autonomously, I think it was 67 or 66. So we're having autonomous trains for over 50 years right now. And it's great because I think what happened there after they made this train autonomous, they double the frequency of the train. So again, a great example of automation that supports the greater good. But not all automation are made the same. And I started to define what is a great automation. Great automation improves customer experience while reducing the load on the company's workforce. It has to do both. And I think that's a really important distinction, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, because you can automate your workforce part and hurt customer experience, and you haven't done much. So you want to be able to do both, improve customer experience or reduce customer effort if you want to stay with both reductions, but also reduce the load on your workforce. And by this, save money and all the other benefits you get from automation. So, a few examples. My favorite, what I think of true automation, is ATM. Everybody here is old enough or young enough to actually be born with an ATM present. Like it's something we all grew up with. And I think of ATM as maybe one of the best automation example ever. Before ATM, you have to walk, if you want to get cash or deposit checks, you had to walk into a branch within the very narrow open business hours, not on Sunday, early on Saturday, probably between 9 or 8 to 4 o'clock. You had to stand in line behind other people that need to do some business in the bank, and you have to go to the teller, you have to talk with the teller, and you have to identify yourself and go through this rigmarole of getting your $200 or $300 and get out. It was a 15-minute task. It was not great for the person who wants to stay in line, go talk with someone just to get $200. It was not great for the tellers because it's boring. Like counting money is not an engaging task. However, maybe it's for kids. It's really fun. But it's like this, but it's not engaging for somebody at a bank. So the tellers did not like it, and it prevent them from doing something more interesting for the customers. And by the way, think of it from a cost perspective. The cost for a bank to give someone or to allow someone to withdraw $200 was probably $1 or $2 just in the total cost of having this branch, having the employee, training, and so on. Today, or last 70 years, you walk to a wall, you don't have to enter anywhere, and you put in your card, you key in a code, and 30 seconds later, 24/7, you get the money you wanted. And now you can get like up to $1,000 or whatever. You can get a pretty significant amount of money. You can deposit your checks. So it's a great example of automation that does both. If you remember, it's reduced workload, on your workforce, at the same time significantly improve customer experience. Fantastic example of automation. And of course, we can continue with now you can do it on an app, so the automation continues even further. Another great example of automation, you don't even think about it as automation, but e-commerce. The entire e-commerce in a way automated our experience of buying something. You go to a website, you scroll, if you have Shopify, a shopping cart or Amazon, within 2 clicks you can buy the thing you want, it's arrived directly to your house. There's no person giving you the item from the shelf, there's no person ringing you at the end. All the thing is happening automatically, there's much bigger inventory, and you do it from the comfort of your own home. Much better experience, so different. Some people, there's some value going to a store and getting stuff. But for all the mundane stuff you buy, it's such a great experience to be able to buy online. And at the same time, it significantly reduced the workload because it's not very efficient to have one person waiting in a cash register and sometimes there's 20 people queuing, sometimes there's no one for hours. So great example of automation. What I will call so-so automation is the store checkout. This is a supermarket checkout. If you have 3 items, it's sometimes good. If you have apples, bananas, some exotic fruits where the sticker is the font of the sticker is like 2, and you have to kind of, what code is that? It will just take a long time to check out. So if you have 3 items, probably can go and do the store checkout. But if you have more than this, or if you have produce, you're actually going to through the day, you actually decide to go and go through a store checkout, and a cashier will do it much faster. Like the only reason we go to the automatic checkout is that because there's going to be a long line for the cash register with a person, but the one with a person will do it twice as fast, and the experience will actually be better. So I'm just looking at my own personal experience. Almost every single time when I go to a supermarket, I go to the checkout with a person because it's going to take half the time, because I don't buy 2 items, I usually buy for a whole week. It will take half an hour to do it with store checkout. So that's an example where you reduce the load on your workforce. Actually not really, because there's always a person there and you click the button and they come to help you because you always get stuck. So just reduce a little bit the load, but actually create a much worse customer experience. Amazon was able to challenge that. If anybody been in an Amazon store, like they just popped before the pandemic, where you literally go, use your phone to get in, put stuff in your whatever own bag and walk out. That's a great automation. That's a great experience because for the 5, 6 items you get there, this was smooth, this reduced the workload and improved customer experience. So these are all generic examples. Let's talk about what happened in our own industry. We actually only had so far so-so automations. We put an IVR in, 10, 12 years ago. I'm talking about the talking IVRs, not the routing IVRs. The one that's supposed to deflect, which is a word I loathe because imagine yourself sitting in front of your customer and say, our goal in the customer service department is deflect you. No customer, if you cannot say to your customers, cannot be internal goal. Deflection is a bad word because you would be embarrassed if your customers heard about that. And most people here are here because they don't believe in deflection. They build on resolution, which is what we are focused on. So these IVRs will try to deflect you. They will try to say, hey, I want to do this, it won't understand you, and even if it did, it just send you to the website. And people called you not because they didn't know in 2022 that you have a website. You know this IVR saying, did you know that you could actually do this thing on our website at www.website.com? I said, yeah, it's 2022. I know you have a website. Congratulations. It's 25 years of internet. You have a website. I know I'm still on the phone. There's a reason for that. So that's a so-so automation because it's end up acting as a speed bump between your customers and you. And when customers call you, they're not super I'm having the time of my life calling you because I have no problems whatsoever. They call because something frustrating happened. Maybe you changed your flight, maybe something went wrong. So creating a speed bump that just does not create any value is not really helpful. So it doesn't really achieve reducing the load on your employees, and it doesn't improve customer experience. It's a terrible automation, not even a so-so. And I think it's the same with some of the chat providers. People got really excited about them in 2015, 2016. I actually wrote a blog post about that in 2016. I reread it. I can still stand behind everything I wrote, what was it, almost 6 years ago, about that. They try to personify them, make them cute, and at the end of the day, when they only revert back to try to deflect you again to this website or this form, it doesn't create a lot of value, especially when you're already on the website, which is inherently how chat works. You're already on the website, sending you to the website is not super helpful. So it's another example of social automation. It can maybe deal with some of the issues, but not with the majority of them. So that's a bit of automation in the world outside and in the contact center space so far. And again, to remember, I'll repeat it once more, the definition of good automation is you have to improve customer experience and reduce the load on your workforce. It has to do both. Otherwise, it's just not a good automation. So let's switch gears to a different topic that hopefully you're going to find interesting. I had a conversation with Shep Hyken. Maybe some of you maybe follow him. He's a big voice about customer service. He has a podcast he started in 2013, I think. And I just came up with this statement. I don't know why. I was inspired by something. To define customer service as the gap between the way your product is designed and the way it is actually used. And it sounds like a weird concept for a second, so let me explain it. Your team has designed a product. That's this nice circle over here. Oh, actually, there's no circle yet. Now there's a circle. Your team has designed a product and a service. And I think of it as service offering because products are sometimes something you can touch, but service is the overall experience around, like if you're an airline, your airplane is a product, but you have a whole slew of services around that. And say man makes plan and God laughs. Product managers, executives design products and customers use them in whole different ways. Now, customers come in that they use the products a little differently. This is how your customers use the product. And you can ignore exactly the level of overlap. It's just for illustration and to make the slide symmetric. But your customers don't use the product exactly the way it was designed. Either because designers are optimistic. People are always going to buy and not going to return a lot. People will book flights and less so cancel flights. And of course, there's all these other things that can happen you have no control of. Weather events, whatever else that makes people not want to use your product the way it was designed. So there's a sweet spot somewhere in the middle, the happy path, where everybody's happy. Your product is the customer is using the product exactly as designed, and nobody complains. But there's another part, which is where customer service comes to play. This is where customers are not using the product as designed, or they find issues, or there's errors, or the mistakes, or there's whatever caused them to not be able to use the product, and they have to call customer service. I'll give you a very specific example that comes to mind, which is kind of mundane. My wife used to run product design at Stitch Fix. Used to be a great company. Unfortunately, not so today. And one of the things, Stitch Fix is a packaging, is a package kind of cloth type of service. Personal designer ship you 5 items. You pick you keep what you want, you return what you don't want. One thing they discovered is that they had tons of customer service calls around not liking or liking the shirt but not the color. People just wanted, the size. It was a size. I really like this shirt. It's the wrong size somehow. Although they try to give you always the right size, they want one size up, one size down. It was not an option in the app. It was exactly one of these items that was outside the box. People call customer service and said, but I really wish you had this shirt in small. And customer service says, yeah, we do have it in small. We'll swap it for you. They've done it for a while. So the product team actually built it and solved this problem. And then after a while, people got used to the fact they can do it in the app. And now they want different colors. So a whole new set of customer service issues came around with people actually want to get the same shirt, same size, just different color. So that was a new issue that started bugging the customer service team. The problem with this is you don't, as customer service leaders, you don't really have control about the flow of customer service calls come to you because of this gap. This is a given, and you can beg and ask the product team to improve it, but most product teams don't. Most product teams don't listen to the customer service team. They don't sit there and say, oh, I have a whole sprint team, a whole scrum team, that sits there just solving your issues. They just continue building the product, and you continue getting the sewer line that is all the things that they haven't planned for. So it's one area we don't really have control. So you can try to solve it in several ways. You can go and ask the product team to improve the product. The answer you're going to get is no way. Second sprint in February 2025. Or I don't have enough headcounts, talk to the CFO, maybe you can give me some headcounts or budget from your department. And then they take the budget and they solve one problem and the budget disappears. But that's a variety. Very few companies. I talked with many people about this specific issue. I think I can count few companies that did it and really build customer service into a flow. Uber is one of them. Uber definitely created automation within their product. Every time you cancel a trip now, if you were an Uber customer 10 years ago, this was a Zendesk ticket. When you cancel a trip and get charged, it started a Zendesk ticket and back and forth with the person. Now it's a one-click algorithm decide if you get refunded or not. So Uber is a great example of that. Most companies don't. So that's, by the way, one of the reasons why I don't recommend ever using IT to solve automation issues. Because if IT cannot solve the product problem, why do you want to rely on them to build, to take Google Call Center AI or one of the open platforms and build automation for you? They're going to get really excited about that for 3 weeks, and then you're going to stuck with nothing for the years to come. And I see this laughs here, so I see confirmation in some of the sad laughs. I'm laughing, but I'm crying inside. Yes. So that's one option. The other option, which you guys do all the time, is add people. If you have the budget, you add them locally. If you don't have the budget, you add them in cheaper places. And I actually been in an event called Concero and overheard a conversation where people were talking about how cheap did they go. I said, did you hear about Africa? I can get people in Africa for $2.50 or whatever the number is. So it's just become as how do we find the cheapest people ever that we can get into customer service. It's another option, but again, not a great one. The third one is automation, and this is why we're here and what we want to talk about. Automation lets you, in the customer service seat, take control over this flow. You cannot change the volume of calls that come to you, but you can change how many of them, in a way, can create a barrier, and you can change how many of them get to your agents, which gives you, for the first time, control over the impact on your agents and on your contact center. Again, it wouldn't change the number of calls coming in, but it would change how many of them will affect your agents, which is a pretty big deal. So what is automation? Talk about it, we build it up. Contact center automation helps companies automate common customer service issues while empowering agents to focus on more complex issues. And that's what we talked about a lot yesterday. It's not about automating everything. And we heard stats from, we heard Tanya from CAA talking about in the winter, 60% of roadside assistant calls are being resolved by automation, but 40% are not. Because sometimes there's a pet locked in a vehicle. We don't want a machine to solve that. Sometimes people just don't want to talk with a machine. They want to talk with a person. It's what they're used to. Sometimes the issue is too complex. The car is locked in an underground garage with 17 right turns that are very narrow, and we don't want to build a machine to deal with that. CAA and other AAAs have amazing trained humans that understand this complexity and been in garages before and can imagine how complex it is and work with the problem. But automation can help with all the calls that are actually just very similar. I'm stuck in this address with this vehicle, with this problem. Great, let's make sure you get a tow truck as soon as possible. So that's the definition of automation. And when we start Replicant, the journey is now almost 5 years old. When we talked with people about automation, it was a whole new concept. Nobody had budget for it. Nobody thought about that. All we got from people was like, wow, that's impressive. But there was no real energy behind that. Same survey we run, 91% of contact center leaders think of automation as a critical priority. And COVID really convinced everybody that we can't rely on on the flow of calls on one hand to be stable and predictable, and on the flow of agents from the other hand to be stable and predictable. So it's really made it a top priority, and people take action. 95% of contact center leaders either evaluating automation right now, or already working on a project, or like many of you here, already automating. And the interesting thing is 80% of consumers would speak with a bot if it saves them time. So still, it's interesting. People still think of it as a lesser option, which I'll argue in some cases is a better option. We in many cases cut talk time in 50% and there's no wait time. But they will speak with it if it saves them time. Because you know why when the people call customer service, they don't want small talk, they just want to get their problem resolved. If you can do it faster, they'll happily work with that. So with that, I want to talk about somebody who's considering automation and working on automation. Hade from Paramount Hospitality. You come from here? You're breaking the mold? All right. So Paramount is one of our customers, and we want to chat a little bit about how you decide to, what inspired you to pick automation. We talk about that, and there's a lot of reasons. You can pick the one I already mentioned, or can make up new ones. But what inspired you to consider automation?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, first of all. Inspired me in automation. I mean, I think a lot of the problems that we all kind of dealt with, it was always kind of a good idea of like, oh yeah, automation, that'd be so cool to like implement that one day. And then, never really found the time or the money to budget it. And then COVID hit and nothing was really happening anyway. And then it ramped back up pretty immediately. And we do hotels is what we do at Paramount Hospitality. So for us, it was really interesting to see the travel market ramp back up, and that turned on pretty much overnight. So we really had no choice. There was no staff really available. We were facing really high BPO costs, just trying to handle all of those additional calls that we were getting. So that was the kind of main push to look to automation.
And I'm assuming it was a whole new world for you to look for vendors in automation. How did you evaluate the various vendors?
Yeah, it was definitely a whole new world. I'm not a super techie person. I know, of course, the basics, and I can work my way around an IVR, but I really had no idea what options were out there or what to even call it. I was Googling really just random phrases just to try to get me on the right path.
What did you Google?
I was Googling.
How do I make bots speak with? Oh.
Honestly, it was a lot of questions like that. It was really, if you look through my Google history, it was really sad.
Please.
But it was all just kind of, IVRs, and then I looked through a lot of those, and all of that was really just kind of just routing, which as it is, and it has its time and space, but not what I was looking for. Eventually stumbled upon Replicant, luckily, and found the term I was looking for, which was contact center automation, and looked at a couple different vendors, and obviously decided upon Replicant, but that was the kind of start to the journey.
And what was what connected was Replicant? I'm curious. When you looked at your selection criteria, what helped you?
Big thing was customer service. I will be honest about that and give you guys a little plug. My rep, Zach, was fantastic. He really guided me through learning about automation a little bit more. But mainly I found a lot of the other vendors that actually had automation in place with their different contact centers were still, for the most part, kind of just making it easier to connect to an agent. They were still, routing them to like the restaurants or routing them to, frequently asked questions. I didn't really find a lot that was actually in service of, truly an end-to-end experience for the customer, which was, what I was looking for.
And what call flows are you planning to automate? And maybe which impact do you plan to see? We'll merge these two into one question.
Yeah, so definitely the tier 1 calls was really big for us. So for us, it's modifying reservations and canceling reservations was kind of the two big mundane tasks, so to speak, that we're hoping to get out of the agent's hands. And then a lot of just kind of general questions. We get guests all the time ask about what's your early check-in time, late check-in, housekeeping policy, that, for the agents, it's just repeating the same information all the time when really it's, the same information. So that was kind of big for us. And then we're hoping to automate our new reservations. That's kind of the big guy.
That's your money maker. Why do people call to make reservations? I'm curious.
So automating reservations, for the most part, a lot of guests nowadays, they pretty much know what they want. I mean, we've kind of moved past the whole travel agent days of needing to actually find a hotel and things like that. A lot of guests just hop on like Expedia or Booking.com and they find the hotel they want, and they are really only calling you because they think you have a better rate, or they've got busy lives. They don't actually want to go online and book it and have to put in all their information and go from there. They just want to hop in maybe their car or call while they're at their desk working on other projects, and just physically not necessarily talk to someone, but just not have to be the one to type it all out. So that's kind of a big thing that pushed towards automation too.
And what is the impact you're expecting? What will be great in 12 months from now?
Yeah, so we're definitely hoping to cut out our BPO, because our BPO is great, but they do have challenges, like they're not connected to our property management system, which Replicant will be, which we're excited about. So there are some things the BPO can't do, which obviously causes some issues for our guests and a pretty big financial impact to us. So hoping to cut that out for the most part completely, and that's kind of our main goal right now. And then for our new reservations, we're definitely hoping to see at least a standard conversion based on our in-house agents or equal to that of the BPO.
And last question, based on your current experience, which advice do you have to the people here about what's the best one or two golden things you wish you'd known?
Things you wish you'd know. Definitely get to know your vendors a little bit better that you're connecting to on the API side. That was really enlightening to me. When we did our discovery call, our vendor, which was our central reservation system, was like, oh yeah, we can do this, this, and this. And then when we actually started connecting the APIs, it turned into a whole thing, which we navigated, of course, and we did a great job, and the Replicant team did a great job of figuring out the technical side of it so our use cases could still work, but that would be a big thing. And then really just start the journey. I don't think there's really ever going to be like a magic time to start automation. You just kind of have to dive into it and go from there.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to go before this time.
Thank you, Hannah. So let's jump and talk a bit about what to automate. So hopefully we agree we want to automate. Time is now. What do we automate? And again, take you through some kind of a mental diagram I created, try to explain that. There's many ways to look at contacts, but I try to look at them from high emotion contact to low emotion contacts, and open-ended conversation to transactional conversation. Open-ended is, I'm traveling to Egypt with my 4 kids, and what should we do? Like, that's super open-ended. It happens in the travel industry. It's low emotion, but very open-ended. Transactional calls, roadside assistance is a transactional call. First notice of loss in insurance. Your car is broken. You wanna get help. It's transactional. And then calls can be very high emotion or low emotion. They can also change. The same call flow can be low emotion in one case and high emotion in the other. If you think of roadside assistance, here's a very low emotion call. You just get out, the car cannot start. You're not late to anything. It's a low emotion call. But if your puppy is locked in the vehicle or a baby is locked in the vehicle, which we heard happens a lot yesterday, it's become a high emotion call, even though the actual flow is usually no high emotion. So that's kind of a way to think about that, and it can create a useful guide of what to automate or what to pick first. So the optimal zone for automation is when there's a transactional call, which is low emotion. People just want to get stuff done. They want to get it fast. So the optimal place is, again, first notice of loss of insurance, updating my credit card for a company. I'm going to give you some examples of use cases. Hotel reservation, it's transactional. You want a hotel room. We know what we need to ask you and how we need to guide you to get a hotel room, and you have a hotel room. And when I started Replicant, when we started working on a concept and work with the first customers, we thought this is the only thing we should do. Just this highly transactional calls that are low emotion. And then we learned that there's actually value in other places too. So if you look at the transactional calls, if you look at the right corner, high motion transactional calls. That's a call that can look like it's transactional, but it has high emotion in it. The same example was a baby locked in a vehicle. The value of this is that you can use automation to triage and make sure this call gets higher priority to an agent that is now ready and willing to take this call. If there's a 30 minutes wait time for roadside assistance, everybody will be, it's first in, first out. Everybody is going to be waiting 30 minutes, the person with a baby and the person without the baby. If a call becomes transactional, become emotional, you can use automation to, within 30 seconds, turn it from a call that a machine deals with to a call that a person deals with no wait time. So when we have when somebody said I'm locked out of the vehicle in a roadside assistant use case, one of the first questions we ask is there a baby or a pet in the vehicle? And we can choose based on the agreement we have with our customer what to do in this case. We can route directly to an agent with no wait time. We can send it to a different queue. So you can use automation to triage urgency and emotion, even in calls that theoretically are transactional, but actually end up being highly emotional. And it's a better experience for the customer because yes, they spoke with a robot, but instead of waiting 10, 20, 30 minutes and get to an agent then, with just queue with everybody else, they can get to an agent within 30 seconds. It's a much better experience. Another interesting place is open-ended low emotion. That's again, open-ended is not something that bots do very well today, but you can narrow down options for agents and make sure you know which agents to send it to. You can always authenticate, you can always get some information for the customer, you may be able to answer a question or two, and then transfer to an agent. It's not a fail, it's still a success because if we save the time to an agent, as long as we pass the information to the agent, we are still in a pretty good zone when it comes to saving and creating value for the agent. The one place which is kind of the hell zone, don't get close to, is probably don't try to automate high emotion, open-ended conversation. That's where something terrible happened. You came to your Airbnb at the middle of the night. There's no sheets on the bed. The apartment is flooded, and it's 1 a.m. Like, don't try. We don't know what. There's so many solutions for that. Somebody's going to be really emotional. It's going to go wrong. There's not even a point of trying. Again, you can always do authentication, pass to an agent, but it's not a place where automation shines. Now, if you look at what use cases are being automated today, and this is a bit of an eye chart, but just give you an idea. Try to give it names just to make it a bit more interesting. We're doing a lot of transaction conversion flows. You come in, we know what you want, we kind of take you through a funnel. This is the roadside assistant call, hotel reservation, appointment scheduling. I call it a conversion flow because once we know what you want, we can kind of take you through the various steps to get what you want. Conversational notifications, that's an interesting name to call when you can actually notify somebody about something, but also interact with it. One great example is keep members informed in the roadside assistant world. We told you the tow truck is going to come in 40 minutes. It's actually going to come in an hour and a half. We can call you and tell you it's going to be an hour and a half, and by this we save an inbound call, where's my truck? But also we allow you to interact with it because maybe you already got somebody to give you a boost and you don't want to have a tow truck running around looking for you. Or maybe a good Samaritan help you and you know at gas station, one exit ahead. So you can interact with the call. So it's not this notification that is like, bye-bye, pound sand, try to solve your problem. It allows you to interact with it. Information intake is something we do, actually it's a couple of customers we do it with. Late qualification, start a claim, all of it is not necessarily getting a full conversion because you might need an insurance agent on the other side to finish the transaction, but you can collect a lot of information ahead of the agent. We do a lot of account management, update addresses, pay, change credit card. And we do a lot of triage and routing, identify, authenticate, prioritize, route. And these call flows are already automated and in the millions of calls. So there's not like, nobody here is going to be a pioneer in the majority of this type of call flows. Many of them are already automated. So diving a little deeper for a few minutes, I want to invite Meghna Suresh, she's our head of product, to the stage to talk a bit about how contact center automation actually works. Stage is yours, Meghna.
Great. Thank you, Gadi, and hi, everyone. It's great to be here with all of you today. I'm Meghna, head of product. Now, you've heard from Gadi some fantastic frameworks on why automate, right? What pain points does that actually solve for you and your businesses? He also walked through when you automate. What I want to talk about right now is how. How do you deliver a great conversational experience, a great product to your end customers? And you've just heard that we handle such a variety of different use cases for our customers today. We've handled everything from transacting with restaurants, placing food orders to restaurants on behalf of customers, dealing with small business owners who are very busy, working in very noisy environments. We handle this roadside service use case, right? Coming to the rescue of someone who might be stuck on the side of the road, who's having car trouble. We transact with students. They call us about complex tax forms, and we have to navigate the ins and outs of that, right? The list goes on and on. And you might think, well, does each of these solutions actually need a pretty bespoke approach? And the answer is no. Over these last 5 or so years of actually going to market with just such a rich variety of use cases, we've found that it kind of boils down to a handful of things that you really have to try to get right every single time. The first one of these is conversation design. Now, I could spend a lot of time talking about this, and in fact, we had a great hour-long session on this with our customers yesterday, but I want to boil down some of the essence of what's really important here to get right, no matter what use case you're actually talking about here. With conversation design, what we think about doing at Replicant is designing great voice user interfaces, right? In some ways, it's like designing a great visual user interface, like a website. But we don't have a lot of those great visual affordances. There's no back button in a voice UX, right? On a website, a customer can just, if they make a mistake, just go back to the last thing they were doing and carry on from there. We don't have that in voice. You don't have a great homepage where you could put on a splashy visual layout. So what do you do when the only tool in your toolkit is the spoken word or conversation, right? We found that the key principle to keep in mind is establish trust with the end customer that you're speaking with. And that's a really key thing to start with every single time. So at Replicant, we start every conversation with an announcement that we are a thinking machine. We don't personify the machine. We don't ascribe any human characteristics to it. It's a very honest and transparent way to start a conversation with a customer on the right foot. But that alone isn't enough. There's a principle that we love to talk about called what's in it for me. We often think the battle, if you will, is won or lost in those first couple turns of conversation. That's the opportunity you have to draw the user in and make sure that they're actually going to carry through with the experience, because their alternative is to shout agent and simply ask for an escalation. How do you keep them in the flow? Articulating what's in it for them is really important. So can you say something like, hey, there's actually a 25-minute wait for an agent right now after doing a data dip into a contact center system. But on average, I can resolve this billing issue in 3 minutes. Would you like to give it a try, right? So these are just some ways that you can really establish trust and credibility and start off on a strong footing with your customers. The second principle I'd like to talk about is channels. Gadi talked about some examples of so-so automation, right? The IVR and the chatbot. Now, the one thing to call out here is not only are those separate examples of so-so automation, it's a disparate, fragmented experience for a customer. They get one experience on an IVR system and a whole other experience that's not great on a chatbot system. And what the customer really wants is one seamless experience, right? They want to feel like they're speaking with your brand in one unified voice. Now, how do you achieve it? Here at Replicant, we are working on providing kind of one unified platform that can handle all of these conversations. And that's really important because it reduces effort for the contact center user who doesn't have to build these automations several times over. But the other thing we love to think about is how can you actually integrate different channels into the same conversation, right? A great example I like to think of here is scheduling an appointment. If someone calls in to, say, a healthcare clinic, wants to make an appointment for next Tuesday, we wrap up that conversation with a text interaction saying, here's your appointment confirmation. Let me know if you'd like to reschedule or cancel. Now, let's say Monday night, this person's, I have this 8 a.m. meeting, can't make this appointment anymore. They could just text in and cancel, reschedule that appointment without having to pick up the phone again. That's a really seamless experience. What if there's a piece of visual information that a user needs to convey in the flow of a phone call? Let's say you're doing some troubleshooting and an agent needs to look at a picture of how a particular device is configured. Could a user snap a picture of that and send that via a web form in the path of a phone call? These are all the creative things we're trying to think about as far as creating that great automation experience where you can blend different channels together in a great omni-channel world. Now, the third thing here is native integrations. I almost don't have to spend a lot of time on this because Hannah did a lot of it for me, right? Talking about some of the pain points around integrating with different systems and how it's really hard to work with BPOs because they might not integrate with your order management system or your reservation system, right? So making sure you have your bases covered on all of those different integration points is key. But again, we like to think about how we can get creative with this. Once you've solved that, right? You've gotten all of these integrations in place. Can you use that data to really personalize the experience for the caller? So, great, I know exactly who this person is. They're calling in right now. They have a particular account management issue that they want to solve. But I also know that all of my customers tend to have an email address on file with us and this customer doesn't. Can I proactively prompt for that at some point in the flow just to make sure they don't have an issue and have to call in another time, right? So gather that data and think about how you can personalize based on the information that you're pooling from all of these integrations. The next part is agent handoff, and this is a really exciting new frontier, right? Automation is not just about what a machine is doing on a phone line or on a chatbot. It's that seamless handoff from machine to human, and facilitating that is so important. We think of designing the agent handoff as just as important in its own right as designing that fundamental conversational experience. And so a few pointers here that we've come across through the years. Coming up with a bullet point call summary or interaction summary that a machine can generate before handing off that conversation is really key. Think of that busy agent. They've got 30 calls in the queue. They're trying to get in and out and get through as many cases as they possibly can. They often have a few seconds to glance over some context before they can actually move on and resolve that issue. So what can you give that's glanceable context? It's not going to be flowery prose. A machine, any automation that you engage with has to be able to say, these are the steps I went through. I authenticated the user. I was able to schedule an appointment for this particular type of scan, but oh wait, there's actually an issue where there's a different type of appointment they need to schedule before that, and this is why I need to escalate it to the agent. How can you summarize that information really quickly? Is there visual information that could accompany that? In the roadside case, could you show an agent a map or some other visual affordance that tells them exactly where they need to be going, right? Always thinking creatively about passing agent context, very core tenet of what we do here. Finally, analytics, right? You can't improve what you can't measure. And we talked earlier about how product managers have the best laid plans. I'm guilty of this as well, right? You build a product that you think is battle tested, robust, you've put so much thought and effort into it, goes live, and a customer might not interact with it exactly as you think they might. We went through this example yesterday in an interactive session with our customers where when collecting an address or piece of information, we once had a script that was phrased, can you give me your address? Expecting the user to say, yeah, I'm staying at the Hyatt, at Nashville. And instead, they said, yeah, I could give you that, or yeah, do you want me to give you that now? And so it's, learning from data that that's a particular turn in the interaction that wasn't going so well, we're not getting the expected responses, and rephrasing that to something like, what is your address? Makes it very clear a user is supposed to respond with an address prompt. And doing that many times over, because these conversations can get very expansive and very complex. So robust analytics is absolutely fundamental. So, here's that great 5-point plan on how to design a great conversation. And there's obviously a lot more nuance here that we'll get into in a lot of the other sessions today. But once that great conversation is built, live, deployed, what results can that actually drive? Hopefully these 3 metrics are incredibly familiar, right? These are the metrics that all of you contact center leaders are focused on driving for your businesses. It's average handle time, it's cost per contact, and it's CSAT, right? These 3 are the holy grail. If you can move all of these, you've had an amazing year. And what's interesting is actually talking about the magnitude with which automation can move all of these metrics, right? We have seen for certain use cases 2x faster handle times for these conversations, which isn't something we necessarily expected when we actually first built this product and first launched the company. We thought we probably will end up being, roughly as effective as agents, but turned out we're actually a whole lot faster. It's not just because, a thinking machine doesn't engage in small talk with an agent, but actually there's incredible computational power in a machine, right? So if you throw numeric information at an agent, like someone needs to schedule an appointment 20 days out, an agent actually has to think about what date that is. A machine can compute that instantly, right? So leveraging that computational power of a machine, enabling a machine to think like a machine, really speeds up conversations. Thinking about cost per contact, it's obvious when you think about it, why this might be a cost savings, but I think what's really interesting when we get into all of the ROI models and how value is delivered for the customer is just, it's not just, taking hours that an agent used to work, with breaks and vacations and all of that, and the cost savings from replacing some of that time with automation. It's also just that customer service work tends to be one of the highest attrition jobs out there, right? And retraining, we've heard, is just such an incredible cost when your agent workforce turns over time and time again. And so this is just your agent of the month or agent of the year that constantly gets smarter, constantly gets better, and that's a cost you just don't have to worry about anymore. And finally, CSAT, again, is an area where we didn't expect to see a huge improvement over an agent experience initially, but again, something we found we're able to drive up significantly. On average, we do see a 4.5 out of 5 CSAT. It's because of that much more seamless, fast, omni-channel, delightful experience where the handoff to an agent is with the full context of the conversation. And you don't have the frustration of having to repeat yourself again after you've just gone through an IVR and then been transferred to an agent and have to read all that information off again. So these are a lot of the key metrics and a lot of the key methodologies around building a great conversation. Come find me afterwards if you'd like to chat more about any of this. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Meghna. We are almost at the end, and we have my favorite part of this keynote. I would like to invite our really good friend, Tanya, where are you? Back to the stage to talk about her experience in CAA. Using Replicant. Coming from the wrong side again, okay, break the rules.
I break the rules, right?
I know you break the rules. Tanya again is a really good friend of Replicant. She even came all the way to our internal sales kickoff meeting in the summer, which I thought was with Lisa and some other customers. So it was great to have our customers coming and talking with our internal team. And you came again in force. How many people came with you this time? We're the CA team.
Woo!
Woo!
I brought all my friends.
She came in power. So you're using automation for one of your most significant, like your business call, ERS. Tell us a bit about why you decided to automate the ERS call, the Emergency Roadside Assistance call.
Well, our automation actually started quite a few years before we met you. So we decided to automate because there was a big event happening in Canada called the Canada Games, and we didn't know how that would affect our business. There was supposed to be hundreds of thousands of people coming to Toronto at that time, and we wanted to make sure that we were prepared to answer the calls of our members. So you talked earlier this morning about ramping up to big events, and so this was our way to ramp up. We couldn't hire that many people in that quick of time and then just let them go after the event. So we decided to automate at that time to help us with the lower priority, easier, less complex calls.
And I wonder, this is your business call. This is your money call in AAA. How do you think about the risk of doing that?
Well, what we did is we separated the risky calls, which were roadside, from the people who are in the safety of their homes. So if you're at home and you go out, like let's say you got your coffee in your hand, you got your lunch, and I don't know, a lot of people do that anymore, but you went out and you started the car and it didn't start because your battery was dead. That is a less risky call because you're in the safety of your home. So we were able to separate the roadside and highway and baby locked in car and animal locked in car. Those calls went to Live Answer, and we put all of our at-home light service into automation.
And now you automate the majority of the non-highway roadside assistance call. What kind of convinced you to do that?
What can convince me
What
to...
convinced you to move from only the limited home light service to everywhere but highway, all services?
It was our inability to answer the calls because we had a hard time hiring people. I think a lot of people are in the same boat where have all the workers gone? So we had to weigh how long are the people waiting on the side of the road versus how long are they waiting to answer or for us to answer. So what's less risky for them to go through automation in a quick time and then kick out the ones who kick out naturally for whatever reason because they are a lot more complex. So that will allow us to send the less complex roadside into automation and then leave the people that we do have to answer the more complex, more risky calls.
And we hear a lot from customers of prospects, okay, makes sense to me, but customers aren't going to like it as much. It will impact customer experience. What's the actual data you see? Because you measure everything, Medallia, through us. What's the actual impact you see on customer experience?
For the most part, people who are successful in our automation tool are equally as satisfied as the people who go through Live Answer. People who are on roadside, they range, the age of them ranges. So we've got young people to older people. So that's sort of taken off the table because sometimes we find older people are less willing to play with the bot. But I find that people are less willing to wait. Maybe in my market, a little bit different because the Torontonians, they want things yesterday. So I think that they'll be appreciative that they're being answered and the call gets in quicker, more than if they had to wait 10, 15 minutes to get through to a live answer. I think if that were me, I would prefer to get my call in and then wait for the truck to come rather than wait on hold with the music.
And it sounds like your customers prefer it too. And you had some people have, do you remember one of the favorite quotes? You showed some quotes yesterday from what customers actually say in surveys about the machine.
Yeah.
I know I'm going off script, but I thought it was fun.
Well, I think the favorite, for those who weren't here yesterday, when we had our old partner of automation, we never got compliments in our customer surveys ever. So when we started with Replicant, and I'm looking at the surveys to see mostly the detractors, but then I'm thinking, these people like us. They like the bot. And I showed my boss, I said, look, Anita, they like the bot. And I was just floored. And they talk about being understood if they have an accent. And my favorite one, even though it was a detractor, said, your bot creeps me out. And that really goes to, you chuckle, but I thought that actually is a compliment because they really do believe that is it human? Isn't it human? I don't know. So it's a big improvement from what we were dealing with before. And, if people actually take the time to tell us that they like it, that's saying something.
And any outcomes that were better than expected, kind of going into the journey, and you had experience with automation for years before that.
Yeah. What I found was there's a couple of things. The cost per call, I truly believe that I knew. We walked in, eyes wide open, this is going to be more expensive. We knew, we did the cost assessment. But what we didn't understand and what we didn't foresee was that the amount of calls that Replicant could actually complete, not just start and kick out, but from start to finish, they completed in the bot, it actually reduced our cost per call from our other automation tool. Either it's equal or it's reduced. And that one we were very surprised about. The other thing that we didn't know if it would work is the tows. And so my friends in AAA and CAA, we know how difficult it is to get that tow destination. But the amount of calls that get in with a tow destination from front to end is surprising. We tried it with automation, and it always struggled to find out what the dealership location was, or A&J towing over there. It just could never figure it out. So I know that I sort of dropped that hint with your team, and they said, "Oh, we could just Google." I think it was you. You said, "Oh, we'll just Google."
We're in Toronto in this weird Airbnb meeting
that was
we had,
really weird, wasn't it? Yeah.
and then he said, "No way you can figure out where." People just say,
like, "Yes, we
"I
can."
need to be driven to Volkswagen, this name in this corner." We got it.
Yeah, he says, "You can figure that out," and they did. And that was Steve and I were like, "I don't know if this is going to work. Let's try it." And then we looked at it, and I remember that week, I said to my boss, I was like, "It's completing like 25% of our calls. What do we do?" Oh my God. And it was one of those, oh, shoot, did we do too much?
Apparently, yesterday I learned that 60%, when it's colder, our completion rate jumped to 60%
Yeah.
because people just say, you know what, I can be picky, or I can just
Yeah.
get out of this mess, cold mess, and be towed
The
quicker.
completion rate actually flows and ebbs and flows with the kind of calls we're getting that day. So if we get a lot of road service, because we haven't launched road service yet, if we get a lot of road service, then it'll decrease. And you just know it's because more people are driving around rather than at home.
And last question, I know we're taking a bit more time, but I love what you said yesterday about agents and how do agents react to it? What really happens to all the agent hours you're saving?
That was a bit of a change management because we sort of slid Replicant in and slid our other partner out. So, when you have day after day complaints about the tool of the old tool, and then it goes away, you don't really notice. You're like, something's missing, but I don't know what. So when we communicated with them, they didn't really understand. So we had to actually show them. We showed them the calls coming through, and they get a kick out of what our members say. Some of them, they say the weirdest things. And it gives them a different perspective of, it's not just the bot, it's our members too. So, it's a two-way street. It's just like the members talking to you and you ask them where they are, they don't know where they are. And you're trying to get that out of them. The bot will have the same difficulty with that too. So they've been really receptive to the new tool, to new automation. They actually are so receptive. They come to us with, hey, Tanya, have you looked at XYZ products? It's a really game changer. And so they're coming to us with ideas now, because a lot of them are so much more advanced than we are. They're young and hip, more hip than me. But they give us the ideas, and some of them are great ideas and really cost-effective.
Yeah, I was excited to hear that at the end of the day, many agents get promoted because of that.
Yeah.
They move into control tower, move into
Yeah.
kind of better, more interesting jobs, which at the end, it's our vision. And so it was good to get the verification from you.
In the last 3 years, we have team advisors, which is a step up from an agent, and our supervisors, they all come from our population. We don't hire from outside for any kind of supervisors, managers, TAs. They all come from our agent population. They all started from the bottom and worked their way up. And that gives them hope. They say, if I really do well and I show my leadership and I show what I can do, then I will progress up.
Cool. Tanya, thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming here.
My pleasure.
You can go this way, you can go that way. How can we be not successful with customers like Tanya? I don't know. It's really makes it too easy. So I want to wrap it up. Thank you for being so patient, but quick 3 takeaways from this presentation. One is automation is here. It's already resolving millions of calls. At Replicant alone, millions of calls, tens of millions of calls actually, every year. And we have tons of data, we have a lot of information. I said it yesterday to our customers, I say it to you too, we're pretty good about telling you what's gonna work, what's not gonna work, and not try to get you into the wrong use cases. We want you to be successful because usually the first use case we automate gets us the second, the third, the fourth. Talk with Tanya, she will tell you all about that. I think they have 6 use cases now in CAA. So we want to make sure you're successful. There's no interest whatsoever for us to kind of lead you the wrong way. The second is, remind you that the automation lets you own and control the contacts, I forgot the S here, sorry, the contacts flow, inspect, that impact your agents. With automation, you can create this barrier that actually resolve calls, 60%, 50%, 40%, depends on your use case. But it's resolved calls, and all these resolved calls never come back to your agents. So for the first time, you can actually control the impact of the agent without hiring agents as your only solution. And the third is, automation is a lot of science, but as you're going to hear more today from Benjamin and others, it's also an art. A good conversation design makes a difference with exactly the same platform, between a call that will fail and a call will succeed. Asking the right question, building trust with the machine early on will help you. And this is where we need to collaborate. You know your customers, we know how people speak with machines. We need to collaborate on how to create good user experience. Just like some sites, you go to one airline, you want to pull your hair out, how complicated it is to book a flight, you go to the other, it's like super easy. It's the same with a voice interface. You need to design it correctly for it to work. So thank you very much for paying attention. We have a quick 15 minutes break. After this break, Lee Rubin will come, Peter will come again to introduce Lee, and we're going to have a great keynote presentation. It's not going to be about Replicant, but it's going to talk about empowering teams. And we have a pretty busy day. Find us. Happy to chat with any one of you. So thank you. See you again in 15 minutes.